Good evening, this is Brass Tacks. I'm Zakka Jacob. The arrest and 10-day police custody of ISCON monk Chinmoy Das has squarely shone the light on the persecution that Hindus are facing in Bangladesh. Now, according to an organization that keeps track of the instances of violence against Hindus, Christians, Buddhists and other minorities in Bangladesh, more than 2,000 instances of vandalism on Hindu homes, shops, temples have happened since Hasina's ouster back in August. And that includes 3 temples that were vandalized in a place called Chattogram last night. Chattogram is the same place where Chinmoy Das was alleged to have made this seditious speech, and there was a riot, and therefore he was picked up on charges of sedition from Dhaka at the international airport. Now, the Muhammad Yunus government, albeit it's an interim government, and the Foreign Ministry of Bangladesh have put out a statement with absolutely no mention of Chinmoy Prabhu or what his supporters feel. They've only mentioned the death of the lawyer yesterday in court. It completely contradicts not just what the Ministry of External Affairs has put out, but it completely lays to rest any kind of concern that you would expect from a government of the day to protect its own minorities. The Yunus government is throwing all pretenses out the window. Instead, the Attorney General of Bangladesh has moved a petition in the court there today wanting to declare ISCON as a terrorist organization. Now remember, this is an organization that is involved in things like free food, the Akshay Patra, which is the world's largest free food program. It is involved in running educational institutions. It is involved in tons of philanthropic work. This is the organization that Bangladesh's Attorney General wants declared as a terrorist and fundamentalist organization. The question then is, well, Bangladesh can do what it wants to do. What is India doing? Why is India seemingly not able to stop all of these atrocities that are happening against Hindus in that country? More importantly, what kind of leverage does India have against Bangladesh to try and get the Yunus government, the Bangladesh army, the law and order machinery there to see reason? What is the point of calling yourself the big brother, the big country in the neighborhood, when you cannot look out for Hindus across the Ratcliffe line? But first, the story. All right, so the big question then is, what kind of leverage does the government of India have to try and get the Muhammad Yunus interim government to try and see reason? Is it time for India to take a hard stand? Remember, with Pakistan, we took a hard stand. We suspended normal diplomatic ties. Trade plummeted with Pakistan. Shouldn't we take the same stand with Bangladesh? Now, here's the leverage that India has. As of 2023, the total trade between India and Bangladesh was about $13 billion, of which about $2 billion was raw cotton that India exported to Bangladesh. Now, about 35% of India's global export of raw cotton goes to Bangladesh. And remember, in Bangladesh, the textile industry, the garment industry is one of its biggest. I think about 13% of Bangladesh's GDP comes just from textile sector. So why not put a ban on the export of raw cotton to Bangladesh? Garment exports, they are the financial backbone of Bangladesh. They exported more than $30 billion of garments in the year 2022. 13% of Bangladesh's GDP is from the textile industry. What happens if that textile trade is suspended? India also exports, among other things, minerals and fuels. For example, refined petroleum that was sold to Bangladesh was over $1 billion. If you add minerals and crude to that, that's over $2 billion that was exported to Bangladesh in 2023. India, in fact, is the 4th largest supplier of refined petroleum to Bangladesh. Again, is that not a form of leverage? India also exports edible vegetables and vegetable oils, certain roots and tubes to Bangladesh. all in the tune of about $450 million. This is the last statistic that we have for the year 2023. Bangladesh gets about 20% of its total vegetable exports from India. All of this is leverage. Now, the point is, you might think this is drastic. You might think that, how can countries do this? This is anti-diplomatic. We are living in an age, in a time, when just a couple of days ago, Donald Trump, the new president-elect of the United States, has imposed a blanket 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico, the two closest neighbors of the United States, and said, you fix the drug problem, you fix the illegal immigration problem, and then we'll take these tariffs off. So that's the age that we're living in. So why can't India do the same? Let's try and open this up to our guests. Sanju Verma is national spokesperson of the BJP. Dushyant Sridhar, Vedic scholar, is joining us. Veena Sikri is former Indian ambassador to Bangladesh. Anand Ranganathan, author, is joining us. And Salim Samad is a Bangladeshi journalist. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Let me start with you, Sanju Verma. I just outlined the trade leverage that India has. You are an economics expert. So tell us, why is India not able to use this leverage?
Zakka, first and foremost, thanks for laying out the data, which was very comprehensive. Let's get this very clear. Our annual exports, both merchandise and services, are to the tune of $760 billion, of which the bilateral trade with Bangladesh is just $14 billion. And that too, out of this $14 billion, imports from Bangladesh are barely in the region of $1.8 to $2 billion. It's largely what we export to Bangladesh. So do we have leverage? Yes. But at the same time, please understand that you can't wake up one fine morning. I wish I could have used words with greater discretion, but be that as it may, you can't simply wake up one fine morning and say, oh, let me just nullify every single trade agreement, because India and Bangladesh are part of the Asia Pacific Trade Agreement called APTA, which comes under the aegis of the World Bank. So yes, the Indian government, I'm sure, is doing what it should and what it can to ensure that the leverage that India has over Bangladesh is properly utilized, because at the end of the day, don't forget, while we are almost a $4 trillion economy, Bangladesh is just a $451 billion economy, and our forex reserves are close to $700 billion. Bangladesh's forex reserves are barely $24 billion. Our monthly exports are $39 billion. Bangladesh's annual exports of garments are only $30 billion.
So, ma'am, the question is, what's the point of all of that if you're not able to get the Bangladesh government, the UNIS government, to wake up and see reason? And by the way, I disagree with the framing that it's waking up one fine morning. I don't think it's waking up one fine morning. 5th of August 2024 is when Sheikh Hasina was ousted from power. Since Sheikh Hasina was ousted from power, there have been 2010 instances of violence against Hindus, Christians, Buddhists. This has been documented by Bangladesh's own Bangladesh Hindu Buddhist Christian Unity Council, which is a minority organization which keeps track of violence against minorities. So it's been happening since August. It's not waking up one fine morning. And all these numbers that you laid out, what good are they if you can't get the Bangladesh government to see reason?
I think for anyone to sit here and wax eloquent about the fact that, the Modi government should have done a lot more, I'm sure you understand more than anybody else, being a seasoned anchor, that strategic geopolitical decisions are not made on primetime television, nor are they disclosed. The nitty-gritties and brass tacks, I'm not going to be making them public on a 9 p.m. or a 8 p.m. primetime television show. But let me tell you one thing very categorically. For anyone who believes that the Modi government will not use its leverage, do you remember 2021 when the Taliban wreaked havoc in Afghanistan and we conducted Operation Devi Shakti?
Okay.
We evacuated not only Indian nationals but foreign nationals, including the last remaining Sikhs there who were being marginalized. I hope you've not forgotten. Be it, Operation Ajay, when Israelis, and Indians who were staying in Israel were being marginalized, or for that matter, Operation Kaveri, when we evacuated our people in Sudan, or Operation
Ukraine,
Ganga, when we evacuated
Libya, all of it.
Yeah,
Ukraine. Point taken. So you say diplomacy does not happen on 8 o'clock prime time. You don't want to speak your mind, but nothing stops Anand Ranganathan from speaking his mind. So Anand Ranganathan, you heard Sanju Verma. I'm sure you have a thing or two to say about that.
At my own peril, knowing Sanju, no, but she's a dear friend. Look, first of all, thank you very much, Zakka, for having me, and good evening to my fellow panelists. I need to make 3 points here, and I believe all three are important. There is no doubt about it, Zakka, you said it. We have to save the Hindus of Bangladesh. It is our moral duty, it is our dharma. And let me tell you, the reason for that is the fate of Hindus in Bangladesh is sealed from 30% in 1931 to 9.5% in 2011 to what many census officials believe is less than 7% now. The Hindu population of Bangladesh, erstwhile East Pakistan, has dwindled decade on decade. And to add to the misery, 11.3 million Hindus were forced to flee between 64 and 2013. 2.4 million perished in the 1970-71 genocide. As many as 1.2 million Hindu families have been dispossessed of 2 million acres of land. 12.6 million is the current Hindu population. A spate of terrible violence, rape, murder, looting, arson, temple destruction is a pointer, Zakka, to an ominous future for the Hindus there. The situation is calamitous. And let me tell you, no sanction can work against religious bigotry or religious diktat. Did we have sanctions against Afghanistan? No. As Sanju correctly said, we in fact airlifted the last Hindu or Sikh from there. So sanctions are not going to work, but our moral duty is to protect the Hindus. We saw what happened in the aftermath of the August coup. In district after district, Lal Monerhat, Chandarpur, Hathibanda, Panchagar, Patwa Khali, Hindus' houses were torched, shops looted, temples desecrated, Iskcon temples were vandalized, the deities burned. More than 50 Hindu teachers and vice chancellors have been forced to resign. Lynchings have happened inside police stations. Hindu priests are being arrested and charged with sedition. We have to act. We have the CAA. It must no longer remain an amnesty. We must arm it. Even as we recently welcomed the Bangladesh cricket team amid the ongoing Hindu genocide in their country, let me give you a disturbing statistics. Of the hundreds of thousands of Bangladeshi Hindu refugees who escaped the 70-71 genocide in Bangladesh and settled in India, only 14 have been given citizenship through the CAA. Only 14. That is less than the number of Bangladeshi cricketers that we welcomed. Will we wait till we have to airlift the last Hindu from Bangladesh like we did from Afghanistan? What we don't realize is that Bangladesh and Pakistan will soon go the way of Afghanistan. It is their wish, their destiny, their way, exactly what is prescribed from them. You cannot alter it. And so you cannot alter the past or the future. Just 30 seconds. It is time for India to have a law of return like Israel, because the only safe place left for Hindus is Hindustan. But what has our government done except expect outrage? Has it constructed detention or relief centers this side of the Indo-Bangladesh border to allow tens of thousands of persecuted Hindus fleeing the genocide in Bangladesh and standing in chest-high waters pleading to be let in? Not one. Zero.
Okay.
So let us stop blaming the Islamists. The onus is not on them to save Hindus, Zakka. The onus is on one. Just 10 seconds. Independent India has been that beautiful phase that you see after the pain of childbirth. But the Hindus of Bangladesh are in unending labor. They need deliverance.
Okay. So let me ask Veena Sikri, who's been a former ambassador to Dhaka, to Bangladesh. Here are the list of United Nations organizations: the General Assembly, the Security Council, the United Nations Human Rights Council. There is a UN Commission on Religious Freedom. There's Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, European Union, the US State Department. And I'm looking at the statements that they've put out in the past, ma'am. The UN has put out statements of concern for Rohingyas who are fleeing from Myanmar, for Yazidis who are fleeing from Yemen, Syria, Iraq, Ahmadiyas who are fleeing from Pakistan, even for LGBTQ folks who are having a tough time in Russia, but they have not a word, pip squeak, nada, for the Hindus who are having to flee Bangladesh, or the ones who are unfortunately stuck there and getting persecuted. Why is that? Isn't that a blatant, egregious double standard?
Well, the double standards are certainly there, and I think that the attention of the international community, including the UN agencies, to what is happening in Bangladesh is now being drawn. I think there have been a lot of letters and petitions there. But I must point out one factor which is very important and which points to the need to directly tackle the Muhammad Yunus government. He is not in control. It is the Jamaatis and the Hizb ut-Tahrir, they are in control, and they are wanting to force an exodus of the Hindus, the Christians, the Buddhist minorities. This is what they have been trying to do since 1971. Even in 1971, when the Hindus and other minorities were forced to flee and 10 million came into India, including, of course, many of among the Muslim nationals of the then East Pakistan, they were all told, the Hindus and the minorities, leave, don't come back, leave, don't come back. This time, the same message is being given to them. But this time, I must tell you, the younger generation among the minority communities, the Hindus, the Buddhists, Christians, they are determined to stay back. They have taken a stand. They have said, we are citizens of this country. We are going to stay here and demand our rights. And they have made an 8-point demand list that they have given to the Mohammed Yunus government, the interim government led by Mohammed Yunus, where he's not in control. And they are very simple demands. They're saying like a law to protect minorities, a ministry to protect minorities, a persecution, all the people who have attacked the homes, the people, the individuals raped and killed, taken away their jobs, all those people should be arrested, they should be persecuted, there should be a justice system to find justice for those people. All this is happening. So I think that what we have to do today is among the issues that you listed out, Zakka, in the beginning, that we have to see what we have to do, talk to the Mohammed Yunus government. And I think the exchange of notes yesterday was not very, auspicious at all, because we made a strong démarche. We said that, this must be peace. And the Mohammed Yunus government replied by saying this is an internal matter of Bangladesh, and there is complete communal harmony. When
there's not even an acknowledgement. There's not even an acknowledgement of the level of violence that Hindus are having to face in that country. Not even an acknowledgement of Chinmoy Prabhu Das, whose arrest sparked off all of this.
There's a complete denial, and Chinmoy Prabhu was arrested and had been denied bail. He is now being accused of sedition, and why we don't know. And even the lawyer who was killed, they are all focused on what to do about that. And actually, there are visuals to show that it was probably, the Islamist groups who had come, they were in combat with the Hindu supporters of Chinmoy Prabhu. And I think there was a mistaken identity, and the lawyer was hacked by some of the Islamist groups. So I think that we have to take a stand and see very carefully what we have to do. This cannot be taken quietly.
So the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Bangladesh, their statement, like I said, makes no mention whatsoever of the arrest of Chinmoy Prabhu Das. It simply only mentions the lawyer was killed. Perhaps, I don't know, maybe the subtext, maybe the reason was because he happens to be Muslim. But, today the Attorney General of Bangladesh has given sound bites to local Bangla channels there, saying that he is moving a petition in the courts asking for Iskcon to be declared a terrorist and fundamentalist organization. So Salim Samad, who's a Bangladeshi journalist who's joining us, why would anyone entertain such a proposition? This is an organization that has been involved in food distribution programs. The world's largest free food distribution program, Akshapatra, is inspired by Iskcon. They've been involved in disaster relief for providing food, shelter, medical assistance in various disasters, including what we saw in Uttarakhand here in India a few years ago. Educational initiatives. They run hundreds of schools, colleges, educational programs, imparting values of compassion and service. The United Nations has recognized Iskcon as a non-governmental organization and an advocate for peace and humanitarian efforts. Why would anyone in their right mind want to put a ban on an organization such as that? Not just put a ban, but call them a terrorist organization. Salim Samad.
Thank you for having me. First of all, I am not a patriot and I'm not a nationalist. So therefore, your question is about the ban. Ban has been mentioned in the last since 1972. Many political organizations were banned. Many organizations were banned. So what happens? It doesn't happen. It doesn't work, because people, once you ban, once you protect, once you resist an organization or a campaign, it multiplies. So obviously, you can understand that there is a move by the student organization, by the student leaders, as well as the Attorney General you mentioned. That doesn't mean that there is going to be a ban tomorrow. It's impossible, because Bangladesh is not a secular country. I never knew that India was a Hindu state, because you are talking, all the three of you were talking as if India is a Hindu state and of course not a secular country. But Bangladesh still today is secular by constitution, by the mind of the people who are in the interim government. Almost all of them are very, very secular. If you talk about anybody, but I'm even the mainstream media is also very secular. If you talk about Delhi Star and the newspapers that were
no, can I just take a step back?
Coming to the ban,
please help us understand. This is not, like I said, I refuse to buy this argument that this has suddenly happened one fine morning. This has been a series of instances of violence that we are seeing for at least the last 4 or 5 months since Sheikh Hasina was ousted from power. Now, why would the Yunus government not want to clamp down on that? Why wouldn't the army want to clamp down on that? It makes no sense. As you say, it's a secular country, it's part of your constitution. Why would it is in the interests of Bangladesh that it comes across as a safe place for its minorities, not just for the Hindus, for the Buddhists, the Christians and the others. And just by Mr. Yunus going to the Dhakeshwari temple, I get it about sending a message, but ultimately somebody's got to enforce the law. Why is the law enforcement, just allowing this massacre to happen? That is something that we're not able to wrap our heads around.
You have to understand. You have to know the definition of massacre or a genocide. Before you do not understand, please don't mention this word. There is a violence, and violence is massacre is totally a different connotation in the political science. Coming to the point that you have been talking about the last 5 months or last 3 months, we are talking about this issue for the last more than 15 years. When Sheikh Hasina was in power, when the previous government was in power, I have been writing this. So why are we talking only 3 months? So there's a legacy. None of the perpetrators in the last 50 years has been brought to the court. They never listened to the music of justice in Bangladesh in the last 50 years. If you're talking about recent year, if you're talking about 2022, when there was a massive violence against the Durga Puja, nothing had happened. Nobody was arrested.
So nothing. I know there have been instances even when Sheikh Hasina was in power. I'm not denying that, but nothing has been more organized, more brutal, more abrasive, almost like the system doesn't care about these atrocities that are happening against minority communities. And look no further than the statement that was put out yesterday by no less than the Foreign Ministry. Not a mention of the arrest of Chinmoy Das, only the death of the lawyer. Let me ask Dushyant Sridhar this. I want to go back to this whole thing about why is the Yunus government, either they are incapable, all right, either it is a capability issue, he's incapable of controlling the situation. I refuse to believe that the army, and it's a pretty organized army, I refuse to believe that the army of Bangladesh does not have the capability to put an end to this violence if it so chose. The point is, it is not so choosing. Question is why?
Namaskaram, Zakka. Namaskaram to my fellow panelists. If we believe that what we are seeing right in front of our eyes is very recent, we are wrong. Anand did mention about the percentage of Hindus from 1930. So it's a story of 1930 to 2024. So it is ethnic cleansing which is happening right in front of our eyes. One of the panelists will say that we should not use such words. It is ethnic cleansing and nothing but ethnic cleansing. Because secularism has always been a one-way traffic, Zakka. And it is always expected that Hindus have to be secular. Point number one. Point number two. Cheto darpanam arjanam bhavamaha dabagni nirvapanam is the line from Sikshashtakam by the 15th century Bhakti poet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was born in the undivided Bengal. 20th century saw Srila Prabhupada, who did yeoman service by beginning Iskcon. Iskcon feeds millions of people across Bharatadesham and in other countries. Just because they feed, if they are called a terrorist organization, so be it. So today, we have reached a situation where ISCON is called a terrorist organization. And here where brothers, Owaisi brothers say 15 minute baki hai, they are made MLAs and MPs. Probably the mobs in Bangladesh have taken this 15 minute baki of Owaisi brothers very seriously. And my last point, I have immense respect for Sanjuji. She knows how much I respect her. But when she says that one fine morning, we cannot do it. For the last 100 years, there's been an ethnic cleansing. What happened to the Hindus from 30% to the 8%? Are they naphthalene balls? Do they go vanish in thin air? So I think decision has to be taken. And one last point, Zakka. When Indian cricketers take their knee for saying Black Lives Matter, when Bollywood actors say all eyes on Rafa, why aren't all eyes on Dhaka now?
Yep.
That's my question.
Fair point. Why are all eyes not on Dhaka? I think that's an absolutely fair point. Again, I come back to this, Sanju Verma. Vis-a-vis Pakistan, India suspended trade. India recalled its High Commissioner. Even now, 5 years after it did so, There is no full diplomatic ties between India and Pakistan. There are no high commissioners in either country. Why can't you do the same with Bangladesh? I mean, what is stopping the Modi government?
Zakka, let me now make one thing very clear. I share the anguish of, Dushyant Sridhar and Anand Ranganathan. But I will again reinforce one thing. It's very fine to sit here and wax eloquent about, the government has not done enough. It took 69 years, but it finally happened in 2019 when the CAA was made a law and passed by the Indian Parliament thanks to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's willpower and determination. I do agree. It took us time to notify that act, but finally the notification of CAA also happened in March 2024, and the interesting introduction or amendment to the original CAA made by Amit Shah in 2024 March was that now even undocumented and persecuted Buddhists, Christians, Hindus and Jains from Pakistan, Bangladesh, Afghanistan can come into India. But I will tell you one thing, I'm playing the devil's advocate here. I'm sure the Modi government will do what needs to be done. We suspended the FN status to Pakistan in 2019, most favored nation status, and Pakistan's economy went off the cliff. Do you remember 2015, Zakka? You follow foreign policy very closely. At that time, we had two prime ministers in Nepal who came in quick succession, Sushil Koirala and then KP Sharma Oli, who's also the current Nepalese PM. Madhesis, the ethnic Hindu community in Nepal, which was being brutalized and marginalized. They formed about 20% of Nepal's Hindu population. It was thanks to the Modi government that an amendment was passed in Nepal, giving Madheshis in Nepal constitutional representation in parliamentary bodies, in government institutions. So I'm sure the Modi government is cognizant. But what makes this difficult, I presume, I'm not a foreign policy expert, but I presume is the fact that India is not a signatory to the Global Refugee Convention of 1951. We are not a signatory to the International Refugee Protocol of 1967. But despite that, we revoked the elephant status for Pakistan. We ensured constitutional representation to the Madhesi community in Nepal. And I'm very confident, given the Modi government's track record of standing in solidarity with persecuted minorities, not only Hindus, we will do what needs to be done in Bangladesh too.
Just as you were speaking, since you mentioned CAA, and I'm not even getting into the 5 years that it took to notify the rules for the CAA, I did a simple Google search. How many people have been granted citizenship through CAA? And Anand Ranganathan, you might want to weigh in on this. This is as per an Economic Times article from May 2024. 350 people. 350 people have got citizenship through CAA. And we're talking about a Bangladeshi population. I mean, 2,000 instances have happened just from 5th of August in one country. And we're talking about giving citizenship to 350 people through CAA.
Zakka, a couple of points out here. First of all, with due respect, I'm surprised that Mr. Salim, who's a Bangladeshi journalist, doesn't know. He's calling Bangladesh a secular country. He doesn't know that Islam is the state religion of Bangladesh. It's like calling North Korea a democratic country just because it is officially called Democratic People's Republic of Korea. So Kim is a democratically elected leader. No, the other point that's important here, Zakka, you must realize that, as I said, no amounts of sanction is going to stop religious persecution of minorities in Islamic countries. With Pakistan, great that Modi removed the most favored nation. We've almost stopped our trade. But I want to ask you, hand on heart, have the Hindu persecution in Pakistan stopped? No, they've actually increased. Had we imposed sanctions on Afghanistan, would we have been able to stop the persecution of Hindus, Sikhs and Christians there? No. The question is not about sanctions. The question is what we can immediately do to help save the Hindus and other minorities of Bangladesh. We have to have camps this side of the border, call them detention, call them relief, because there are tens of thousands of Hindus escaping certain death. They are being asked to go back. They are going back to their certain gallows, Zakka. We have to do something there. Sanctions are a long-term issue.
Okay. So, the Modi government's contention, even though they are not saying, I mean, Sanju Verma has not said this, openly, but this is not a small number. We're talking about like 13 to 15 million people. I mean, surely a country that is, stretched for resources like ours, we already have 1.3 billion and counting. How do you absorb 13 to 15 million people, Anand?
Yes, so here this is a historic question or historical question that was partly supposed to be addressed by the CAA. We must give the Hindus the choice. They want to return to their homeland because they're being persecuted. It's not a question of Hindu diaspora being asked to return. Here the Hindus are being systematically cleansed, as Dushyant, my good friend, sir, ethnically cleansed by the majority population. We have to provide them a home, otherwise who else will?
Okay, so Veena Sikri, I don't buy the argument that Sanju Verma says you can't use trade or weaponize trade. Like I said, just 2 days ago, Trump has imposed 25% tariffs, or said that he will impose 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico until they fix the fentanyl problem, until they fix the immigration problem. So trade has already been weaponized. Now the question is, and I gave the example of India and Pakistan. Again, trade there is negligible trade between India and Pakistan. Now they used to be at one point of time $2.5, $3 billion. There are other things other than the garments that I mentioned. Minerals, fuel, oil, about 2.19 billion is what India exported, minerals, fuels and oil to Bangladesh in 2023. Refined petroleum alone was $1.3 billion. That is the fourth largest supplier of refined petroleum to Bangladesh. We saw in Sri Lanka when the crisis happened, the economic crisis happened, albeit in different circumstances, it was India that came forth and extended the line of credit. It was India that came forth and made sure that there was fuel at the pumps. Surely India has that leverage too. Why are we choosing not to use that?
No, I think India definitely has the leverage, and I would say that India must be considering how to use this leverage. You must remember that on the 8th of August, when Professor Muhammad Yunus came to power, the interim government was formed. India said, yes, we are willing to have relations with you, we're willing to talk. Now that offer is very much on the table. Maybe there will even be consultations. But side by side, in diplomacy, you don't do only one and then don't do any of the others. Every pressure has to go simultaneously. And I would say that even global pressure, we've seen the statement that President Trump made before the elections on the situation in Bangladesh. He called it chaotic in Bangladesh. He called the attacks on the Hindus and the Christians as barbaric. So the world knows this is happening. And I think we know that is happening. And I said, you're right to mention the figure of 13 to 15 million. It's not that you're looking at 13 to 15 million coming to India. We're looking at ensuring that the people there get their rights. This is what they are fighting for, and we should join that fight, and we should be able to use any leverage, because I think there are many. You have not mentioned the leverage of power supply, the cross-border energy supply that we are doing. So it's not that there are no leverages. There are many leverages, but we would like it very much if the interim government, led nominally by Professor Muhammad Yunus, takes note of what we have said in our notable yesterday, and remembers their own constitution, under which they have sworn oath to become members and advisors. So, and they should respect this constitution and follow it. And we are asking that this happen.
Salim Samad, I'll give you the final word. I've got to go to the next debate. Here in India, many have sort of given up on Professor Yunus and his ability to rein in these mobs or this rampant instances of violence. Like I said, either it's a question of incapability or it's a question of incapacity. Either the state does not have the remit, or state does not have the capacity to rein in these protesters, because ultimately, this is going to affect Bangladesh. This is going to affect trade and commerce in Bangladesh. It is going to affect your biggest export industry, which is textiles. And it's not just India that is watching this. The world is watching this. So the point is, why isn't your interim, and you cannot have an election. It's ostensibly the only mandate of the interim government is to hold elections. You cannot possibly hold elections when, 10 million people are running for their lives.
I have told you before, I'm not a patriot and I'm a nationalist. So you're looking at me as Mr. Bangladesh.
No, I'm not. I'm just asking you for your views, that's all.
Number one. Number two, first thing I will definitely go to your point. But I never knew, because my knowledge of of course I'm a journalist, so journalists are very poor. I never knew that Hindus are ethnic. That is, I have to reset my dictionary and Encyclopedia Britannica to understand whether the Hindus are if the Hindus are ethnic, then the other religious communities all over the world are also ethnic. but that is nothing to do with ethnic cleansing. When Madam Ambassador Sikri was in Bangladesh, there was a massive riot, persecution. You just name any word which has happened in Bangladesh, all over Bangladesh, for 3.5 months. Veera Sikri was there, and she will not. I would not say that she is going to salvage me, but she has seen that what has happened. So I mean, that is, nothing had happened. There was nothing called that you have been proposing a ban of trade bilateral. This is going to be totally, again, contrary to the spirit of the bilateral friendship that you are talking about.
What is the bilateral friendship good for, sir? If there are 2,110 instances of violence, singularly of one particular minority community, I mean, it makes no sense. That's not friendship. Anyway, we'll leave it at that. I got to move on to the next segment, but thank you to all our panelists. Let's hope that some sanity, some reason, some rational thinking prevails in Bangladesh. If for nothing else, the lives that are being lost, the bad name that the administration, the interim government is getting there. Ultimately, you cannot have, and this is a society, a government, a polity that's going through a fair bit of churn. You've got to come out on the other side of this churn in one piece. And that cannot happen if your largest ethnic/religious minority is scared for their lives.